Cringe Crew Music Podcast, Series 2. In this series, we are listening to and reviewing entire band discographies. We finished up with Radiohead, and so now we have selected Bring Me the Horizon. I just want to make it known this is our second attempt at recording this. Everything was going smooth, right? Got through talking about a bit of the band, the background on the band, a bit of background on the album that we're doing. We listen to the first song. Ted starts talking. I kick my fucking surge protector, and my entire computer shuts down, and the file gets corrupted. So here we are. off to a great start.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of going into making this long-winded, I'm just going to summarize everything from before we started. So, Bring Me the Horizon are I'm reading this from Wikipedia, okay? Are a British rock band formed in 2004 that currently consists of lead vocalist Oliver Sykes, guitarist Lee Malia, bassist Matt Keane, and drummer Matt Nicholas, along with keyboardist Jordan Fish. In this episode, we're covering their debut album, Count Your Blessings, which released in 2006. And yeah, before that, they had an EP titled This Is What the Edge of Your Seat Was Made For, that released in 2004. And then prior to that, they had a demo tape called The Bedroom Sessions, and I'm not seeing a lot of info on this. There was something interesting in here that like when the band started, they got their name from some dialogue at the end of the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, where Jack Sparrow says, "Bring me that horizon," and that's where the name comes from. I'm not going to read all this other stuff because I did that before, and now I can't be bothered that we're recording this a second time, so it is what it is. So anyway, before we had to restart, we got through track number 1, Pray for Plagues, and Ted was talking, and then my computer shut off, so you're going to have to start over. I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. So my big takeaway from the song was mostly that, like, I just kind of forgot it existed. Like, I've listened to this band a million times over. I've come back to this song a million times. Still love this song. I just somehow, when I think of Bring Me the Horizon, this sound never comes to my brain. I really like that the guitar in this song. Both the high-pitched melodic kind of sounds as well as just the chugging a million times over. But in the grand scheme of things, all that my emotions come to mind are just, holy shit, Ali used to be on drugs, and I completely and totally forget about it all the goddamn time. Lyrics are kind of like half misogyny, half God strike the universe down, which is kind of like pretty strange to combine those two things, I guess. Yeah, I like this track. I just remember this track being a strong start before the entire album goes downhill.
Yeah, this is definitely, I'd say, probably like maybe not necessarily a high point, but this is definitely like a favorite song among fans when you consider the old stuff. Most times, I feel like when you ask people to name a Bring Me the Horizon song, they are not gonna say Pray for Plagues first. Probably gonna say something off of Sempiternal. But this was during their deathcore era, I guess you could call it. And this was kind of, I want to say, like, it's definitely not the first big one. It's probably one of the earlier, like, big deathcore hits back in the day, for at least in Europe or in Britain too. And much like just about every other metal subgenre on the planet, it's a fusion genre of metalcore and death metal. And well, you can hear those blast beats and the melodic from the death metal, and then you can also hear those chugging, like Ted mentioned, just constant nonstop chugging from beginning to end from the metalcore. And it creates a very almost addicting kind of sound. It's very exciting, very upbeat, but yeah, Ollie, deathcore also has its place in cringy fucking lyrics, because sometimes it can be fucking out there. First lyric after the intro line of Fly is, "She starts her new diet with liquor and dick." Yes, thanks, Ollie. Thank you.
10 out of 10 line. Very cool.
Yep. And then we just get into, like, hey, biblical plague, God strike everyone down, please. And
Yep.
and then we're right back to liquor and dick.
I really love it. I love Genius for this because you go to the second to last one in the chorus and it talks about, it literally mentions Peter 3:10 through 12, and the very next fucking line, come on my face. And it actually wants to fucking like talk about it. It gives 3 fucking paragraphs. The last one, it gives a whole explanation on why this specific line is significant in any form, and I'm like, I love Genius. I love this website. Don't ever fucking change. I know I bitched in Radiohead. I fucking love this website.
So another hilarious thing is that also, I think posted on the Genius is that there is footage from a live show where Ollie says that the lyrics to this song mean nothing.
Yep.
Again, he was just on drugs. Like that was it.
Yep. That's also how you could probably categorize a lot of early deathcore. It just doesn't mean a fucking thing. I mean, it was so misogynistic, but I guess it didn't mean anything.
So this isn't really my style of metal. I used to be really into like Devil Wears Prada and We Came as Romans back in high school. So this is like not really the type of stuff I listen to these days, but I'm not saying that this is bad. It certainly, there is some guitar shreddery going on here for sure. The lyrics are, well, we talked about the lyrics. They're certainly something. I don't know, man. If the rest of the album is like this, cool.
It's funny because in our first time recording the intro, Mike mentioned that, like, he had a 2 or 3 album pickup of Bring Me the Horizon, like, that he has listened to before, and that he was just kind of jumping into this album blind. And it's crazy that, like, you couldn't even recognize any part of this as coming from those other 3 albums. Like, Ollie hits deeper, like, lower guttural screams in this one that don't come in any album following this at all. Like, the guitar doesn't sound like, I guess those high-pitched squeals come a little bit in the next album, but like that just thumping bass drum and the chugging just doesn't exist anywhere else in Bring Me the Horizon.
Yeah, if you would have told, if you tell anyone, if you were to play that to someone who has never heard this album before and said that's Ollie Sykes, I think they'd look at you like you were insane. Because I mean, actually, the man actually was doing this shit so fucking often and so hard that he was injuring himself. Oof. He physically had to stop singing this way because he was hurting himself doing it.
It used to be a big meme that, like, Bring Me the Horizon couldn't finish an American tour because there were too many stops. He'd be in pain and they'd have to go back to Britain.
Yeah.
It's just crazy listening to something newer and thinking, wow, they did this first.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is probably their most famous, like, early song. And this, I love it.
All right. I guess we can move on to track number 2, which has a great name. Tell Slater not to wash his dick.
So I want to piggyback a little bit off of what you said on the last one, Mike, where you just kind of like hear this album and go, this is how they started, when you've listened to more recent stuff. One of the most obvious comparisons for me for this album in particular is just that, like, there's this kind of recklessness about how this album got mixed. There's a lot of places where you lose the vocals in this song, where just a line before you could hear the vocals perfectly fine. The mixing on this song is like actually garbage because they don't give a shit. But another, like, really masterful guitar track, and that you can actually hear the whole time, although it varies over how well you can hear the vocals. I still just can't get over that, like, this sound is where we used to be. I also like in the last one I mentioned that, like, you kind of forgot that Ollie was on drugs if you've been around this band for a while. I also forgot that he was very briefly, like, married, and so, like, all of the stuff that he's singing to appearingly a partner, like, is somewhat relevant, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, this one had a lot of Well, this one had a very prominent, like, kind of shreddy kind of guitar that we had mentioned previously. This one, yeah, Ollie has some really fucking, like, really low guttural growls that are, like, essentially lost when you get towards that, like, third verse or something. It genuinely sounds like, yeah, I think Ted's right. There's a lot of recklessness in this recording, and like we mentioned earlier, there is a lot of recklessness in how Bring Me the Horizon performed in general. Ollie just kind of didn't give a shit about his voice, so he very much just kind of threw caution to the wind, and I'm sure really fucked his voice in the beginning. And you can hear that this almost, when I hear it, it almost hurts to hear it sometimes, just because I can almost hear the pain that he has to be in when he's singing this kind of stuff, which I'm sure is also why he doesn't sing most of these songs anymore. Sometimes, if you're lucky, he'll pull out Pray for Plagues, but it's highly unlikely that he does it anymore just because of how bad it was for him. And this song, I think, really encapsulates how, like, much you can hear it on this track of just, like, guttural it can sound. But I mean, honestly, I still really like the blast beats and that shredding guitar and the chugging. I still really found it enjoyable.
I don't really have much to add about the song per se, but just kind of looking at some of these subtitles reminds me of a time like back in this era where like metalcore bands would just give all their songs really goofy names. It's like Devil Wears Prada was guilty of doing this, especially on like those first couple albums. Just
dogs can grow beards all over.
Like, I'm just looking at the title for the next song. For Stevie Wonder's Eyes Only, Braille.
Yeah.
I love it.
But yeah, nothing really much else to add about the track. It's just kind of a lot similar to the other one. More of the same so far. Not a bad thing, though, so far.
So one of the things about this era of music, the deathcore kind of sound, was that they followed a pretty strict formula. It was always verse, breakdown, chorus again. I like the way that this one kind of broke it up. We got a breakdown a little bit earlier. I like the bridge section to kind of change things around. I also really liked the fact that the drums for the first time in this album have some differentiation. Like, you can actually tell, instead of just it being those blast beats, loud sound, drum go boom, you can actually understand that he's hitting different drums at different times now, which is pretty cool. But realistically, this sounds like the rest of the album to put them all together. I mean, like high-pitched shredding guitars, low-pitched chugs, and a breakdown, and Oliver screaming at you. And like, that's about it.
Yeah, I really I obviously know that Ollie not necessarily separates himself, but definitely doesn't have the same mindset, obviously, that he did during this album. But I really need to ask him, what the fuck does the corpse of every pregnant teen taste like? Because I am fucking confused. If there's one thing, I know that I definitely bitched a lot last time about Tom's inability to enunciate, and to be fair, in deathcore, it is very much a meme that you cannot understand what these fuckers are saying. And I'm gonna be honest, with early Bring Me the Horizon, you definitely could fall. They very much can fall into that camp easily with just wondering, what the fuck did he? Is it just a low the entire song? Like, he could. Ollie can sometimes sound like a very low guttural, where it's just that one note for a long time, and then it just shifts between a low guttural into a very high, like alarm sounding kind of fucking squeal, and it's like, holy shit. And it's that a lot throughout the album. So I definitely understand also why people may not find this the most enjoyable album for some, I'd say.
Yeah, just kind of more of the same, I guess. I I'm just wondering what it would be like to just take every song on this album and then play them at the same time and then see if you can tell any of them apart, because you can't.
Yeah.
But I'm just kind of skimming through this thing on Wikipedia, and I guess after they released this, they just kind of wanted to quickly move on to something else. And since they've evolved, they like don't really have any interest in this because they just don't listen to deathcore anymore.
Yeah.
Which I guess checks out, you know.
Yeah, they really don't have anything that even sounds remotely close to this nowadays.
Well, and I think that they've brought in members that like have more experimental stuff in them too. Like I'm fairly sure their keyboardist joined, it was either just before or just after Sempiternal. I mean, and they've done like Japanese techno pop albums, you know, rather than this. Like they have different interests in music, which really the evolution from here forward is really good, but it's a rough place to start.
Yeah, a little bit.
Alrighty. Well, moving on to track number 4, A Lot Like Vegas.
So much like you said, Mike, where every song sounds the same if you played them over top of each other, I'm pretty sure the guitar riff from the first verse is actually the same as Pray for Plagues. Like I'm 99% sure they're exactly the same. I think the guitar absolutely shreds again. And I think it's really cool that this is the first time we've heard something that isn't just, hey, Ollie, how gutturally can you scream? Where we like actually almost hear his real voice. I do enjoy this track. It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. Pretty simple.
Yeah, this one was actually, this is one of the more, one of the, like Ted said, this is one of the shorter songs. But also, yeah, I would agree that first verse's guitar comes in, it sounds like almost identical to a verse that would be on Pray for Plagues or one of the other songs before this one. It sounds very, very similar. But I really loved that like guitar solo and just the part whenever Ollie's voice isn't there. It's different. It has that very strong riff and like shredding that we've heard, but it doesn't need to have all these guttles over top of it. And like Ted said, we were very close to getting Ollie Sykes clean vocals, although it's just bordering on that like vocal fry scream that he can sometimes do. But you definitely, he was getting close. You could definitely hear what Ollie sounds like more on his like more recent stuff. But yeah, this one was, I think, a little bit better because it was a little shorter.
Yeah. Again, so far this album just sounds the same. I guarantee if I picked one of the previous 3 songs at random, I could not tell you which one is which, except for maybe the first one, just because I'll never forget the dumb lyrics on that one. Like that's maybe the only one that I'd be able to tell the difference. Like the other 2, no shot. I don't know how I feel about this so far. I already said that this like typically isn't like my normal the usual style of metal that I listen to, and even back when I was listening to this, I don't know that I would have liked this particular album, like even when I was listening to stuff like this, but I'll give it a fair shot. I'll see how the other half of the album goes. We will see. All right, track number 5, Black and Blue.
So I know every song on this album is the same, but it's always been a favorite of mine. The chugging of the guitars tickles my brain in just a certain way. Love it. I couldn't even tell you what's different in the last few songs. Tickles my insides, man. I couldn't tell you what it was. Guitar solo shreds. Absolutely love the instrumentals on this song. It's my favorite one on the album. I don't care anyone who says Pray for Plagues is their favorite is a liar. The big thing that sticks out for me from this one is that like I know a lot of metalcore of the time like got this rap that like everything is super violent and angry, and of course there were some songs or bands that did do that, but Bring Me the Horizon didn't do a whole lot of like angry aggressive, right? Like even some of their more angry lyrics were more just like their own self-pity. This one literally is like, hey, you could do a service to the world, just die, please. This one was super aggressive, which I think stands out pretty significantly lyrically.
Yeah, lyrically, this might be like this is not one of my favorites lyrically. I mean, when we talk about misogyny in the first one, this one's a little bit more. I mean, maybe not blatant, but I mean, it's definitely there. Um, but instrumentally and musically, I like this one a lot. This one, I think, I'm probably around the same feeling as Ted. It's up there for me. I'd say this actually probably right along with Pray for Plagues is like this one and Pray for Plagues are like my two like more preferred songs that I'll go back to on this album. So far on this album, this like makes me remember that it's like more of like a singles album where I'm going to come back and listen to singles from this. I'm typically not going to come back and listen to this whole thing all the way through unless I'm like really feeling like an itch for Old Lolly. But yeah, I still like I like it a lot though.
I will say I like this one slightly more than everything I've listened to so far. I could not tell you what about it, but it's all right. Not really much to add otherwise. It's just kind of, again, sounding like a broken record here. More of the same, but it's more tolerable, I guess. We'll go with that.
Fair.
It's just we're halfway through and I'm not impressed. But like I said, we still got 6 more tracks to go, so we'll see how I feel by the end, but it's not promising. All right, track number 6, Slow Dance.
So this one has always bothered me, and I guess like it takes re-listening to the album straight through to remember why it bothered me. Getting a straight instrumental track from a deathcore album just sits in a really weird place for me. I don't think it's bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it's more of the same music that you've heard from other ones. I guess, Mike, I don't know if it made the intro that you said on this one that's actually going to make the video, or the one before you kicked your surge protector, where they just kind of rushed a couple of songs in to make this album like they were trying to meet a deadline. I guess this makes more sense in that context, but it still just feels kind of out of place to put this on the album at all instead of just scrapping it.
Yeah, I definitely feel like, I mean, a very core like part of deathcore are those unclean vocals, the essentially using your voice in those very extreme manners. And not saying that there's never been a deathcore song that's been instrumental, but it's just not as frequent. I feel like that maybe this. What am I trying to say? This was not necessarily an era of Bring Me the Horizon that I was around to listen to when it came out, but this just kind of feels like them not necessarily like loving to play deathcore. They're just kind of playing it to play it. This isn't like their preferred style or like what they want to play. It sounds like almost, but it was still enjoyable. I still really enjoy their like. It does sound very similar to their past songs, to the past songs of this album, but I mean, I still enjoyed it.
I'm like freaking out because my webcam on Discord keeps flashing green for a split second, and it's bothering me.
Oh, it's been doing that for weeks, my friend.
Oh, I have not been noticing.
Really?
Yeah.
Weeks, you say?
Weeks. I assumed that it was one of those things that if you were going to put it in the recording for the YouTube video, that it would just be fine for there. But yeah, no, Discord has been flashing for weeks, my guy.
What the fuck? Stop it! I'll figure it out later. Anyway, there it goes again. That's distracting. Stop it. Do that. I'll cover you up so I don't have to look at you. But now I have to see it in OBS. Whatever, it's fine. Anyway, so this being an instrumental, I feel like is a slight improvement, actually. Just take Ollie out of the equation, and this works as like some good background music, I think. It's a shame that I think this is the only time that they've ever done this, but this was okay. Just take Ollie out of the song, and I like the song, the music a little more. Not much more, but a little more. All right. And also, apparently, there was a Hot Topic edition of this album that had an additional song. I'm not listening to that one. That's not the one that we're listening to. So there aren't 6 more songs. There are, well,
You said 6, there were only 5.
Yeah, that.
So there's only 4.
I can numbers. All right. Track number 7, Liquor and Love Lost.
So this one's easily like among the least favorite from me from this album. This one just kind of feels forced. Slower, not as thorough, no complexity whatsoever. Like for an album where every song does sound exactly the same, this is just slightly below all of the other sounding the same that we get from this album.
Yeah, this one feels like one of the songs that could have been left off the album, and I probably would not have noticed much. Given that, I mean, it's not necessarily bad. It's just replaceable and I guess kind of forgettable, if I'm being honest. But not bad, I guess.
Yeah, just kind of, again, back to more of the same. Just kind of, we're almost done with the album and I'm still not impressed. There's like 2 albums that I think are okay. 2 songs that I think are okay, but not much else. It's not very good so far. But there's 3 more songs, so we'll see if it gets any better. I'm not holding my breath though.
I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah.
There's a joke to be made here with the title, but I'm too stupid. Anyway, track number 8, I Used to Make Out with Medusa.
Misogyny has peaked, ladies and gentlemen. The chorus, literally word for word, your beauty is no more, so why don't you fuck yourself, you fucking whore. Like direct quotes, like they wrote that in a song. That's just peak lyricism for misogyny, dude. No, I in the grand scheme of things, all of the times that we said Tom needed a hug, I feel like we can't go an album without getting that anymore. And this is the one where Ollie needs a hug. Just, I'm so mad that you cheated on me, I will cut off your head like Medusa. And that's it. It's 5 minutes of that.
Yeah, this is, I think, one of like 2 songs on this album that are longer than 5 minutes, and it is just Ollie ranting about his hatred for a woman, but you know, yeah, this is misogyny at its like kind of highest for them, I'd say. Lyrically, not my favorite. I'll say that. Musically, I mean, the first verse is very much the same to everything else we've heard in this album so far. I mean, I feel like Ollie's fucking growls were extra gravelly in this song. Like, I don't know, maybe he was put his, like, I don't know, smoked a couple Marlboros before he recorded this song, as opposed to the other songs on this album. I mean, it's hard because I can identify that there is talent that goes into this. There's a lot of shredding and riffing, and the blast beats are good, but at the same time, it's also not super interesting after you've heard it. What song is this on the album? The 8th song, after hearing it 7 times previously almost, it kind of starts to get old. But, I mean, I guess I couldn't call it bad, but yeah, misogyny of the song, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of the lyrics seem to be very similar. Just random shit about girls, I guess. Looking at some of the stuff for recording the song, the reason that the lyrics are so simple is because when Ollie was growing up, quote, he said that his life up to that point had, quote, never been that bad. So most of the songs on the album are about girls or just growing up. Yeah, that checks out so far. As for just everything sounding, I guess, just very samey, they wanted to try to be as heavy and brutal as they possibly could and scrapped anything that didn't fit that criteria. and they just wanted to make noisy music. Well, you've achieved it. You've made very noisy music that is not very good, unfortunately. But it's your first album, so I guess it's excusable. No one ever... Well, I don't want to say no one ever makes a banger first album, but there are plenty of examples of very, very good first albums. This is not one of them. All right. 2 more tracks to go. Number 9, 15 Fathoms Counting. Excuse me, what the fuck?
So, you remember how I said I hated the last instrumental track because it felt really out of place for a death metal album?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we did it again, but worse. This is just a fucking acoustic guitar. Like, it's just light, twinkly, doom, 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 doom. Right? Like, this could be a fucking intro to a One Tree Hill episode, dude. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Because I'm more familiar with this band, I can appreciate the way that this might indicate, like, hey, we're going to try other stuff in future albums. It's not going to be this forever, which, like, okay, great. But who wrote this? Who put it on the album? Who decided this was on the final list? What producers or record company said, yeah, this belongs here, stick it there, good to go? Like, who the fuck okayed this?
This I genuinely forgot this was on the album. It's not even been that long since I've listened to this album, and I completely forgot that there was a second instrumental on this fucking album. This is also, I think, like one of, I swear, less than like 5, I think, acoustic songs that like Bring Me the Horizon fucking does, period. Like, they don't... Ollie never breaks out a fucking acoustic guitar unless it's for a whole fucking album. Or unless he's performing with, like, some special stadium or some shit. It was interesting. I'd say more interesting just because, in kind of, like, hindsight, and the fact that this kind of almost straight right turn out of nowhere kind of makes you feel what they do later on, but it almost doesn't feel like they were doing that intentionally, and it was just kind of more of a go fuck yourself. Hey, we were doing deathcore this whole time. How about we just tell you to go fuck yourself? And now here's a right turn, and now the next song, I'm pretty sure, is an immediate, like, 180 back, or however fucking direction it needs to go back to exactly where it was pointing to. That's where it's going next. I remember. So yeah, this is an interesting one.
As heavy and brutal as they possibly could, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Scrapped any song ideas that didn't fit that criteria, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. This came on and immediately, what the fuck? Like,
I just saw Mike.
You get what? 8 tracks that basically sound the same, and then this. For why?
The best part of this song, I was laughing the whole time because Mike had just 85 all different confused expressions. I don't think he had the same face twice, but there were 85. What the fuck is this? Oh man.
I have a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
This threw me for such a loop. You know what? Fuck it. I liked this. This was good. This is the one good song on the album. This is the only one.
I fucking love on Genius. All it says is this is an instrumental, but it says there are 12 contributors. Why do you need 12 contributors to tell you this is an instrumental? What part of 12 people need to collaborate to tell you that this was an instrumental?
Yeah.
Love it.
All right. The track for this one is the title. Whatever. It was just like that in 2006, I guess. The final track, number 10, Off the Heeze.
Okay, so it's just the same as it was before, which is really extra weird after the instrumental track we got just before. But I think this is a decent end to the album. I mean, the themes and the lyrics are all about saying goodbye, right? The same I'm mad about girls who were bad to me, whatever. but it's actually physically saying goodbye. So I think it's a decent end to the album that was really repetitive.
Yeah, it's I mean, I guess if we couldn't tell by this point, Ollie really wants to get revenge on the woman in his life at this time, I guess. Seeing as he repeated it a lot. I'd almost kind of would think that maybe the song before this would have been better as a closer, just as like a fuck you. We said that everything on here was gonna be loud as shit. We ended it with a yeah, fuck you. Like that would have been hilarious to me. But then they just kind of come back with this as a song itself. I think it's okay, and I think it closes a deathcore album just fine. I mean, it sounds like a deathcore end to an album. I feel like it would have been funnier with the last song as the end, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah, this just feels weird, especially after that other one. I agree that the previous track would have probably worked better as a closer, just to be funny, but man, this was just not very interesting and just sounded very samey, and like genuinely I think that like second to last track, the acoustic one, was just the best track on the entire album, because it was just completely different from anything else. Just the fact that it was different made it just infinitely more interesting than any other song.
One last thing before we move away from this track, though. Have you guys ever seen that YouTube video where it's Batman singing along to death metal?
Oh my god, yes.
I'm so fucking tough. I'm so fucking tough. That's right. When he starts singing I'm Dead and chanting it, it's the exact same fucking thing. It's exactly the same, dude.
Yes.
Like some really edgy 15-year-old just wrote all the lyrics to this album.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that was pretty much what all it was at the time, I think.
Yeah, it checks out. Yeah. All right. Well, seeing as this is the first album that we've talked about, we can't really do rankings, but I'm just going to go ahead and predict that this is going to be at the very bottom by the end.
I know that there is at least one album I will put below this, but I think that you guys
really,
but I think you guys will put that album above this one. I'll give it a fair shot as we listen to the future albums again. I mean, listening to them straight back to back is different. Like I said earlier, I've listened to every Bring Me the Horizon release on release, and there have been several that have made me upset when they came out because they weren't, the ultimate trilogy of albums, right? Like it's just not as good as it had been before, kind of thing. But this one, I don't care for it. It's not my style. It's never been my style. If you're going for deathcore, to listen to one or two of these tracks just to come back to them and throw them in a mix of other bands is fine. But to listen to this album straightforward really sucks. I expect this one to be second to last.
Yeah, I'm fully expecting to put this one either last or second to last. I mean, I genuinely do enjoy the deathcore sound, but to be fair, this album is just in general very repetitive and very just kind of not interesting after you get past the the 3 or 4 tracks on this that even have like a slight variance in them, and one of them being a completely entirely instrumentally acoustic song. I don't even know if you can really count that. I mean, there's 2 albums, I'll say, that might be below this because it's been so long since I've listened to them. We'll see. There's other albums that I think I know which ones Ted might be talking about, but we'll see. So far, I'm assuming this one will be either at my bottom or my second to last.
Okay. I cannot imagine anything being worse than this, but we'll see, I guess. So yeah, that kind of does it for this album. Next episode, we will be covering their 2008 follow-up, Suicide Season, which I remember that one being pretty decent. There's a really cool remix album that goes along with that one as well, that you should check out. Yeah, if you guys got nothing else, I guess we can wrap up.
That's it for me.
Alrighty. Catch y'all next time then. See ya.